Churcher, and welcome to the Game Grinder. And if you've been following my channel for any amount of time, you know that I enjoy sharing my experiences, I enjoy telling stories. So much as the title states, I will be sharing my experience with the Midwest Gaming Classic 2017. So really this was my first major convention experience. I went to the 2D Con in Minnesota last year and was kind of underwhelmed, so I didn't have super high hopes on this convention, but ended up having an absolute blast and kind of wanted to share the things I saw and did, and hopefully you will enjoy the story I'm about to tell. So ultimately, the reason I really went to the convention was some time ago. I talked about this in my previous video. Chris, the old ass retro gamer, sent me a message and asked if I had any interest in joining him on a panel, which just like I said in my previous video, was an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. You know, being kind of like a nobody, nothing on YouTube, and having the chance to be on a panel at a convention is just like, wow, like a lot of people don't get that chance. So with the invite, of course, I needed to go, and originally I was going to drive to the convention by myself, get a hotel room. One of my friends was going to be there, but he already had accommodations and travel plans and whatnot. So fortunately, one of my friends in the Minnesota Retro Gamer Society, Jesse, hit me up and asked if I want to go halfsies on gas in a hotel room, which was fantastic because, you know, can save a little money, you know, spend a little extra while at the convention. Trip couldn't have gone any better as far as I'm concerned, and now I consider him a pretty good friend of mine, so thank you very much for reaching out. So we ended up getting there Friday night. Convention was actually Saturday and Sunday, although Friday had like a nighttime kind of thing that you could sign up for, but it costed extra and I wasn't super interested. But fortunately, my friend that was there is, I've mentioned him before in my Henshin Engine video. He is one of the testers for the game, good friend of mine, and he happened to be hanging out in what they were calling the Turbo Room. So what was kind of interesting is the first level of the hotel that the convention was at, they actually emptied out the rooms, took out the beds and TVs and whatnot, and allowed people to set up various types of things. Of course, the Turbo Room being TurboGrafx and PC Engine focused, pretty much every version of the TurboGrafx and PC Engine were present. A lot of them had really cool games going, but it was totally awesome because I got to meet up with my friend Ryan, as well as the developer, creator, pixel artist for Henshin Engine. Sarumaro was there, so I got to talk to him, got to check out the new latest build of the Henshin Engine demo. And what was really cool was there was a really neat Golden Axe modded TurboGrafx 16. So besides just hanging out, having a good time, having some drinks, a couple other friends from the Minnesota Retro Gamer Society showed up, so that was really cool. And even though I'm really new to their channel, Josh from the Game Huggers was present, so I've just started checking out the channel. Seems like good stuff, so I'd recommend checking them out too. And then kind of capping off Friday night really was Kareem, who owns the local game shop called We Got Game, was there, and he actually brought his NWC cart. So I had to ask him if I could take a picture with it, and he was more than happy to oblige. So of course I got a picture with a super expensive Nintendo game, as well as my friend Jesse as well, so that was pretty neat. So then on to Saturday, kind of the bulk of the convention as far as I'm concerned. So one thing that was really neat about this was just a couple days before the convention, myself and the other guys that were on the panel found out that we were getting VIP badges, so I got to pick up my VIP badge, which was really cool. There were some neat perks that I'd totally forgotten about, but I will get to a little bit later. And then I had to start out in the vendor tent and kind of see what I could find. So it was pretty neat. So you had the hotel, which had rooms and all kinds of things set up, but then actually outside in the back parking lot, they set up this massive tent that just had tons and tons of vendors. Everything from video games to artwork to novelty items to some craft items. Like, pretty hard not to find something that you're looking for unless it is super rare. So I'll get to it a little bit more in detail in my upcoming video, my Midwest Gaming Classic 2017 pickup video that I'll be doing. But really, I went looking for a few specific things, didn't plan on spending a whole lot of money. Managed to find a couple of the things I was looking for, but really the items I was really looking for ended up not being present, unfortunately. Actually, I was looking for Cybernator for the Super Nintendo, and another local guy actually bought it from another one of the local that was there, so I must have just missed it. But glad he was able to pick up a game that he was excited for. And of course, like I mentioned, Kareem from We Got Game had a vendor space set up, Eric from Punch Out Gaming had a space set up, and then a couple friends, Louis, Charlie, and Dennis from the Minnesota Retro Gamer Society had a space set up. One of them being what I consider my repro guy, so that was cool. Nice to see friends, you know, out of state and everything at a convention, you know, trying to make some deals. So then really a large chunk of Saturday morning and Saturday afternoon I spent going back and forth between the vendor tent and checking out a lot of the exhibition rooms in the hotel of the convention, which was pretty neat. So I was kind of like, you know, maybe buy a game or two and then kind of wander off, just because I didn't want to spend all my money like right away, try to milk it out a little bit. I figured, you know, that was the way to go. Wouldn't just stay in one spot. Maybe I could bump into some of my friends as I was wandering around. And there was a lot of really cool exhibition rooms set up. There was a console room which pretty much had like most major consoles available to play. I wanted to play Metal Slug for the AES Neo Geo, but a little kid had gotten to it first, so I missed out on that. But it was pretty neat seeing all that stuff. But in the console room there was a Ralph Baer exhibit, who is kind of the founder of video games, and it was a really interesting looking console. Read the description about it, and that was pretty neat to see. And besides that, there was all kinds of additional vendor rooms. There was a pinball room with like parts and supplies and extra information on like repairing and, you know, hunting for pinball machines. There was a VR room. Ben Heck, if anybody's familiar with his channel, he had his own room. I actually didn't stop by and check that out though, because there was kind of a few extra people around it. What was really cool is pretty much most of the halls were filled with arcade games on the side, everything from tabletop games to full-size games. But what was really cool was kind of the arcade hall, as they were calling it, which looked like a giant presentation space that was wall-to-wall arcade games, everything from pinball to classic arcade games to more current arcade games. Unfortunately, when I showed up at that time, it was pretty packed and didn't really have an opportunity to play any games, but I definitely got to scope out some cool ones that I wasn't even aware of that were arcade games. So from there, I decided to drop by and check out Jeffrey Wittenhagen's panel along with Kyle. They were doing a live broadcast of the Video Game Bullshit podcast. Jeffrey Wittenhagen's been doing podcasts for quite a while. He also had a complete NES book, kind of like a competitor to Pat the NES Punk, and he's done some additional books. I really enjoy his podcast, so I figured it'd be really neat to stop by and check out the panel and maybe get a picture with him. And it was a pretty good panel. They kind of talked about the new NES revolution, which was really more about the homebrew scene and all the interesting things people are doing with games, which I thought was neat because he actually mentioned a game that I did back, which was Russian Roulette for the NES, and talked about some current ones on Kickstarter like Spookatron, which is a Robotron kind of successor. It was really enjoyable. And actually my friend Jesse got up and asked a question, which I thought was a pretty good question, kind of talking about like backports, when they take a later gen game and kind of demake it, much like the Final Fantasy VII reproduction that I had.
Story. You gotta go really close, man.
Like backports, like Link to the Past, or even Ocarina of Time, but done in Nintendo version.
So you would like to see a game like Link to the Past downgraded a demake?
Yes, yeah.
So are you tracking that there are a few demakes that were made out of China that have gotten US releases?
Nope.
So Link to the Past was released on a Famicom cartridge. It hasn't gotten a translation yet that I'm aware of, but it is pretty playable for being that it was a giant game with multiple buttons put on a NES controller.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, and then Final Fantasy VII was put on an NES cartridge, given an English remake, and...
So that was fun, and of course afterwards I got to meet Jeffrey and Kyle and get my picture taken, so that's always fun. You know, people you kind of look up to and enjoy their content, meeting them. So then of course after that I kind of just hung out and waited until I could meet up with the guys for my panel, which, much like my previous video, and if you knew about the panel, it was myself, Chris, the old That's Retro Gamer, Shelton from Retro Games, Vinyl and Beer, and Scott, or known as Grimsy42. And our panel topic was called Live Midwest YouTubers. We got some say in what to talk about, but really it was kind of just talking about like how to get into YouTube, how to get a channel going, which there's not a ton that we had to say about it. So then we transitioned into talking about, you know, kind of collecting in today's market, and then wrapped it up with some Q&A, which was really cool because, you know, some younger kids asked some questions, and I thought that was really neat to see, you know, younger generations interested in this sort of thing. So just like the panel, which I have uploaded on my channel, as well as Chris, the old ass retro gamer, put it on his channel as well, but I wanted to send a huge shout out again to Blue Rising Phoenix, who allowed us to use his camera to record the panel. He just kind of walked up to us, introduced himself, and said, hey, I got a camera you guys can use, which worked out very well because the camera that we were going to use kind of fell through. Of course, I want to thank again my friends that were on the panel: Chris, Shelton, Scott. I'll put links in the description to check out their channels. You know, again, thank you guys for being a part of just an amazing experience. Again, I'd like to thank my friends who showed up to show some support during the panel, those from the Minnesota Retro Gamer Society, as well as the Midwest Retro Gamers Society, and the Henshin Engine crew. And afterwards, it was really cool. I got to meet Benjamin, who founded the Midwest Retro Gamer Society, and talk to him. Really nice guy, really digging the community. So if anybody is interested in joining a great community that's about talking about games, not buy, sell, trade stuff, Midwest Retro Gamer Society, and links will be in the description. So then after my panel, I stuck around and checked out another panel for two other members for the Midwest Retro Gaming Society, Tim Hansen and Chris Bidwell. They talked about their experience at the 2015 Nintendo World Championships in E3 in LA. Tim was actually local. Me and him went to the same event to do the qualifiers. Obviously, he did way better than I did, and it was pretty neat just kind of hearing about how the championship went. They got to meet Reggie and be in the same area as Shigeru Miyamoto, which, you know, regardless of what you think of the guy, I think that's pretty neat to be able to actually just kind of be in their presence. So then throughout the day on Saturday, as I was wandering around, pretty much one of my highlights and the things I was really looking forward to being at the convention was meeting up with some fellow friends and YouTubers, which is something I've wanted to do pretty much since I've gotten involved on YouTube. So first off, I ran into PK of PK's Retro Reviews. Great guy, really enjoy his content, a lot taller than I thought he would be. And then I ran into Musty Hobbit. Again, surprisingly enough, taller than I thought it would be. But great guy, really great content. He's involved with the Cartridge Club, so if you are looking for another community to get involved with, that's definitely one to check out. And then of course I had to snap some pictures with Chris, the old ass retro gamer, Shelton, Retro Games Vinyl and Beer, and Scott, or Grimsy42. And believe it or not, one of the things that I will never forget, and just because I am really just such a massive fanboy, but as I was kind of hanging out waiting for some people, Josh, aka The Wizard from Red Letter Media, was walking by, and I was like, oh my god, you know, really fanboyed out. You know, I played it pretty cool, but you know, thanked him for the years of amazing content, you know, exclaimed my profound adoration and love for everything that they do, and he was a really nice guy and happy to oblige. So then Saturday night is kind of where things kicked off. So as I was kind of getting ready to figure out what to do with the rest of the night, ran into Shelton, Retro Games Vinyl and Beer, and we're like, hey, let's hang out and go down and check out the Turbo Room and the Nintendo Age Room. So again, wandered down there, hung out in the Turbo Room with my friends from the Minnesota Retro Gamer Society, started having a few drinks. Kind of in the hallway between the two rooms, there was another little group of people hanging out, and the guys for Bad Graphics Gamers were there. I didn't really get to talk to them one-on-one, didn't get a picture, but that was pretty neat, seeing another YouTube channel that I've watched from here and there. So then as I made my way back into the Turbo Room to hang out with some of my good friends, just having some conversation, kind of time passed by, I went out in the hallway to see what Shelton was up to, and he was gone. And a few minutes later, he came back and he had this plastic bag with a bunch of beers, and he's like, dude, did you forget about the VIP thing? And I was like, oh yeah, totally, I totally forgot. Like, before the convention, like, when we found out that we were getting VIP access, I read that there was kind of like a VIP waiting rest area or something, and I was like, yeah, one of the first things I do when I get to the convention is I'm going to check that out just for funsies. It's not often you get the kind of like VIP experience. So we didn't check out the waiting room because I guess Shelton went in there and there was like a big security guard just kind of like chilling out on a bed, and another security guard sitting on the other bed like eating cheese. So he kind of just like backed out of there. But there was pretty much, they made the arcade hall kind of like VIP access, or like a little bit more special access, not like entirely public access. But one of the first things I seen was the cart of beer that was, you know, up for grabs. So nabbed some beers. On the other side was one of the most amazing things I've got to experience. You know, you hear about these like celebrity experiences where they have like all these weird food requests, but there's a bunch of metal bowls filled with Oreos and then a bunch of containers of Chips Ahoy cookies. So of course I thought that was awesome. There was some pizza, but it was pretty much gone when I got there. So then Shelton and I went in, checked out the arcade, played some Raiden Fighters, which was really cool. Kind of takes away from the experience when you have free play, so you know, it wasn't as challenging where you could just, you know, hit the button and kind of simulate extra quarters and whatnot, but had a blast hanging out there. So then we ended up going back down to the Turbo Room and Nintendo Age, kind of hung out in the Nintendo Age room for a while. Those guys, you know, I've heard things about the Nintendo Age forums, you know, they can kind of be a rough place at times, a lot of drama and things like that. At least for the guys who showed up for the convention, like, what a great bunch of guys. Everyone was just having a great time. They're like, hey, we got a tub full of beer, you know, and feel free to help yourself. So that was great. You know, we kind of like partied well into the night, had a blast, lots of laughs, played Windjammers for the first time, which was a lot of fun. So I'm definitely looking forward to the opportunity to play in that again. So then on to Sunday, which was kind of the wrap-up day, you know, last day of the convention. You know, a lot of people hitting the vendor tents trying to get those extra deals, which I think the rumor that, you know, on the last day of conventions you get better deals, I think is a little over-exaggerated. But then again, you know, that's kind of where I bought the bulk of my pickups, so I'm not really complaining there. So a lot more kind of families and kids, because it's kind of like family-friendly day. But it was neat. Got to say goodbyes to some of the friends that I bumped into throughout the convention. And then I headed back to the Turbo Room. I had talked to Sarumaru ahead of time to see if I could do a little interview with him, which I will include in kind of my current state of Henshin Engine video that I'll be doing coming up here really soon. And yeah, that pretty much wrapped up the convention. Like I said, really over-exceeded my expectations. Had an absolute blast. It wasn't even about the video games. The panel, of course, once-in-a-lifetime experience. Huge thanks to the Midwest Gaming Classic for allowing me to have that. But definitely the best part about it was hanging out with friends, you know, having a good time, you know, partying at night was a lot of fun. 10 out of 10, we'll definitely do it again. So if you're going to be at Midwest Gaming Classic 2018, I will definitely see you there, I hope. So then to kind of cap the trip off, my friend Jesse and I decided that on the way back, we're going to try to hit a couple of Kmarts and maybe some Goodwills. Word is Kmarts are kind of shutting down, so we're hoping to maybe find one that was kind of liquidating things. Only stopped at 2 Kmarts, and neither of them had any video games. Apparently Kmart stopped selling video games a while back. I don't think that's all Kmarts, but that was kind of a drag. But very weird that a retail store wouldn't have anything video games whatsoever. But we did stop by a Goodwill, and I picked up a couple things there, which is always fun, so those will be in my next pickup video. So yeah, so that is pretty much my MGC 2017 experience. Again, huge thanks to everybody who I got to hang out with and talk to. This is an experience I will never forget. And if you haven't checked it out yet, as I said, I have the panel that I was participating in on my channel. It's also on Chris the Old Ass Retro Gamers channel. Then you want to stay tuned because I will be doing an MGC 2017 pickups video. As well, like I said, a little Henshin Engine video kind of showing off where the game is at this point, including the little interview that I got to do. So I hope that you enjoyed me talking about this and it didn't get too off topic and I didn't get too rambly. So for anybody else who went, you know, what did you think about the convention? For those who might have missed out, do you plan on going next year? Or how have your convention experiences been? I have a strong feeling that the MGC will be a highlight of my year for the next coming years. So I guess that will about do it for this video. So as always, thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you next time on the Game Grinder.